In this video, we will be discussing the benign tumors of epithelial tissue with a focus on oral squamous papilloma. Before diving into details, let's clarify some important terminology. Benign. Benign tumor is localized at the site of the origin, and it is not spreading to other parts of the body. It remains confined to the tissue where it has begun. Next is tumor. Originally, the term tumor is referred to as swelling which has caused by the inflammation. But now the tumor is synonymous with the term neoplasm. Neoplasm is referred to as an abnormal growth of the tissue. Next, let us look into the squamous papilloma. Oral squamous papilloma is a benign tumor of the epithelial tissue, and it is considered to be associated with the human papillomavirus. So this condition is involving the proliferation of the stratified squamous epithelium. So this is the stratified squamous epithelium. So in squamous papilloma, you see the proliferation of the stratified squamous epithelium. Squamous papilloma can be of two types. It can be papillary type or it can be a verrucous type. So this squamous papilloma, as already mentioned, it is caused by the human papillomavirus. Now there are different types of human papillomavirus, out of which type 6 and type 11 are associated with the oral squamous papilloma. So these two types are associated with the benign lesions, and they are not causing the oral malignancies. And these two types have very less amount of virulence. And the infectivity rate is also very less for the type 6 and for type 11. And the tumor which is caused by these two types is not contagious. When you visualize the oral squamous papilloma under the microscope, you can appreciate finger-like projections. So these are the finger-like projections, and this finger-like projections have the stratified squamous epithelium in a continuous layer. There is no break in the continuity of the epithelium. It is continuous throughout the finger-like projections. And these finger-like projections are projecting from the mucosa. That is the reason why when you look the lesion clinically, you find cauliflower appearance clinically. And next, let us have a look into the connective tissue. So this is the connective tissue portion or the central core of the connective tissue. Now this connective tissue core is having the nutrient blood vessels. And this connective tissue is also having some inflammatory cells. So why are there inflammatory cells in the connective tissue? As the epithelium got affected with the virus, HPV virus, some alterations are happening in the epithelium, and as a part of body defense mechanism, the inflammation is produced. So inflammation is happening at that site. So in some of the inflammatory cells can be seen in the connective tissue. Now, the connective tissue is not a component of the neoplasm. Only the epithelium is showing the alterations, but the connective tissue is free of the neoplastic component. The next feature is proliferation of the spinous layer of the epithelium. So this is the basal epithelial layer. Virus affects the basal epithelial layer first, and then the epithelial cell proliferates and carry the virus along with it. Now the virus which is present in the spinous cell layer starts its replication. With that, the spinous cell also, which usually do not divide, starts its division, and the spinous layer continues to multiply, and there is also increase in the spinous cell layer, which is known as acanthosis. And apart from this, there is increase in the keratin production by the epithelial cells. As there is increase in the keratin production, there is appearance of the whitish color when you look the lesion clinically. And the epithelial maturation is normal. Epithelial maturation, that means the basal cell after the division, goes into the superficial layers and later it shed off. This process is normal. And in some cases, you can see basilar hyperplasia. And there are some cells which are known as coilocytes, and these coilocytes are usually seen in the superficial layers of the epithelial cells. And we'll see about the coilocytes in detail in the upcoming slides. Let's delve into the correlation of the histological features with the virus replication. So before understanding the correlation, let us study about the structure of the human papillomavirus. So this is the human papillomavirus, and it is having a capsid protein which is called as L1, and this is the major protein. And there is another protein which is called as an L2, and it is a minor protein. It also has genome DNA, and it is also having a histone in its structure. So let us look into the genome DNA. How is it organized? It is having the proteins like E1, E2, E4, E5, E6 and E7. So out of which E1 and E2 are responsible for the genome replication. And E6 and E7 are responsible for the cell cycle progression. Let us see how the virus is infecting the epithelial cell. So this is a virus, it goes and attaches to the target basal cell. This is a target basal cell. So after the attachment of virus to the target basal cell, slowly a virus enters into the basal cell. So the basal cell is taking up the virus into it by a process known as endocytosis. And this attachment is mediated by heparin sulfate. And after the virus reached the basal cell, the uncoating of the virus will happen and the viral DNA is released into the basal cell cytoplasm. So this viral DNA next it enters into the nucleus of the basal epithelial cell. And after reaching the nucleus, this viral DNA starts executing its functions. The basal epithelial cell is undergoing the division and it is producing the new cell. And the progenitor basal cell is present in the basal layer itself. Now the viral DNA is distributed between the progenitor basal cell and also the newly formed cell. So this is a basal progenitor cell which has viral DNA in it, and this is a newly formed cell which also has viral DNA in it. And this newly formed cell is traveling up through the layers of epithelium. So as it is going up through the layers of epithelium, the viral DNA which is present in it is getting activated and viral replication is initiated. Now, viral DNA is having two proteins, E6 and E7. As already discussed, E6 is preventing the apoptosis and E7 is responsible for initiating the cell cycle. So, this E6 protein is getting activated in the virus when the virus reaches the spinous layer. E7 is also getting activated when the virus reaches the spinous layer of the epithelium. So, as a part of normal defense mechanism, if there is any virus in the epithelial cell, what the body does is it tries to kill the virus by a process known as apoptosis. But this apoptosis is inhibited by the viral protein E6. So, thus ensuring that the virus is alive and there is proper time for the replication. And E7 protein is responsible for the initiation of the cell cycle in the spinous layer. Usually, spinous layer will not show any mitotic activity. But because of this E7 protein, the nucleus is again re-entering into the S phase. And it undergoes the mitotic division. Thereby, this layer is increased. So, proliferation of the spinous layer is seen in squamous papilloma because of this activity. Let's now discuss the clinical features of squamous papilloma. Clinically, squamous papilloma presents as an exophytic growth. This means it grows outward from the surface of the mucosa. The lesion is characterized by small finger-like projections that give it a distinctive appearance. So these projections often create a cauliflower-like or verrucous wart-like surface texture, which is typically rough to touch. So the lesion is well circumscribed, meaning it has a clear and well-defined borders, and it is usually pedunculated, which means it is attached to the mucosal surface by a stalk or by a peduncle. However, in some cases it can be sessile, where it is directly attached without a stalk. Now, squamous papilloma is generally painless and it can appear in different colors. Most commonly, the lesion is appearing in white color due to the excessive production of the keratin by the epithelial cells. In some cases, it can also appear as pink color depending on the amount of keratin and underlying vascularity of the tissue. The lesion is slightly more common in the males and is predominantly seen in the children. The typical locations where squamous papilloma may occur include tongue, gingiva, soft palate, lips, and buccal mucosa. The size of the lesion typically measures around 0.5 centimeters. This is the most common size observed clinically. However, in some cases, the lesion can enlarge with a maximum size reaching up to 3 centimeters. Let us look into the differential diagnosis of squamous papilloma. Squamous papilloma has a similar appearance like verrucous vulgaris, condyloma acuminatum, and verruciform xanthoma. Treatment for squamous papilloma typically include conservative surgical excision. This procedure includes removal of the lesion along with its base to ensure the complete excision. Recurrence of the lesion is unlikely, making surgical removal an effective treatment. In summary, we have covered the key aspects of squamous papilloma, including its clinical and microscopic features and its association with the human papillomavirus. If you found this video helpful, please hit the bell icon below and subscribe to my channel. In the next videos, we will continue discussing the benign tumors of epithelium. Thank you for watching.